If you're watching Chuka, better go and lead the treaty. Now, it's not unusual at this time of year to try and change direction in life. You might join a gym, give up smoking, get a new job, or promise not to miss an episode of the Daily Politics for a whole year. Oh, that's a good one. Well, French President François Hollande has made it his New Year's resolution to become, how shall I put it, more pro-business. With the French economy in the doldrums, his personal ratings even lower than the French growth rate, the socialist leader has hinted he could cut labour costs in exchange for firms hiring more workers. Here he is.
That's why I propose a responsibility pact with business. It's based on a simple principle: lower labour charges and fewer restrictions on their activity in return for more workers and more dialogue with trade unions. First of all, I want to reduce public spending. We have to make savings wherever possible. I'm sure we can do more by spending less. We have to spend less to reduce our deficit, but also to eventually lower taxes. That's fiscal reform, which we are committed to. I myself take on the responsibility for following this savings programme for the length of this Parliament.
Now, I'm joined by Axelle Lemaire. She's a member of the French Parliament representing Northern Europe, including the UK. She's a member of President Hollande's Socialist Party. She's also a friend of the Daily Politics, so we get her to guide us on matters French. So we welcome you back for the first time in 2014. What is it like to be supporting the most unpopular president in the history of the Fifth Republic?
I suppose I keep thinking, well, if it's that bad, why don't we take risks? Which is what we're doing. So, you know, it gives us... We have local elections coming, but we still have until 2017.
But you'll be thumped in the local elections.
Let's talk about that when it comes. I'm not totally convinced because we're
thumped again in the May elections, the European elections.
We're you know, at the head of all the mayoral elections, the regions, the departments. So the socialists are everywhere in France.
No, of
we
course.
are
You run all the departments.
So by the time we lose.
So you're going to lose some anyway. Even if things were going well, you would be losing some.
Yes.
But you could be. But I mean, things are not going well. Over the past 25 years, only Italy has grown slower than France. Your budget deficit's bigger than Italy. You have the largest current account deficit in the Eurozone. Since 1999, Germany GDP per head has grown 25% more than France. Your unit labour costs are now higher than Germany's. Your unemployment rate's 12%, Germany's 5%, and you're on the brink of another recession. Where's the good news?
Wow. Read like this, it does sound very, very bad. I'm surprised you didn't mention the United Kingdom, because this is what we're usually compared with, and this is what Mr. Cameron compared his country with. But we're still the 5th biggest economy, number 2 in Europe, behind not the United Kingdom, behind Germany. We topped number 1 in the Fortune Global 500 innovative companies, with 35 French companies leading innovation in Europe. We have a low inflation rate. We have reduced public deficit. Currently we're at 3.8% of GDP. In France, I think here it's 6.4, 6.8.
It's easier, though, for a country that can print its own currency to run a higher deficit.
The level of debt, public and private, because we do have...
You have smaller private.
People in France have savings. They don't take loans to buy cars, to buy houses.
Are we going through what we saw with Mitterrand, the last socialist president of France, who came in on a very left-wing agenda, like Monsieur Hollande, and within less than 2 years, the whole place had gone belly up. It was a disaster, and Mitterrand rushed for the centre. Is that what Mr. Hollande is now doing there, being nice to business and talking about cutting public spending? Is that what's happening?
Not at all. Not in my
He'll
view.
stay on the left?
The number 1 priority in his program as a candidate was competitiveness of companies. I mean, this is how it is seen abroad, that it's a U-turn, it's a pro-business shift. We've always been pro-business. We know we've passed a deal with companies last year, that was in March last year, and I voted for it as an MP in June last year, to help them reduce their cost, the times and labor cost of employees when times are harder, a bit like Germany did at the beginning of this century. We are doing many things, and we've.
It wasn't that. Do you think it was a good way of encouraging foreign direct investment into France, of which France needs a lot, for the unions to kidnap the boss of Goodyear?
I don't think so. I think that gave us extremely bad publicity. That was a decision made by local union leaders that was immediately condemned by the government, by the minister in charge of that case. They were soon released after that. But no, of course, it gave us bad publicity. But it doesn't reflect the reality.
No, I understand. But obviously, you don't see this as a change of course.
I see it as a continuity of what we've been trying to do to promote business, attract foreign investors, and it's actually working. I mean, we're doing clearly better. It is true that the level of unemployment is still high, but it's been continuously decreasing since we got in power.
Well, it hasn't fallen. I mean, unemployment's higher than since you got into power.
It hasn't fallen, but plus 1 million more unemployed people under 5 years of Sarkozy. Since we arrived in power, there's not such a huge increase, and little by little we're decreasing that rate. So, but we're
decreasing the rate of increase.
The rate of increase,
right? But will it help Mr. Hollande's popularity that he now seems to have indulged in the time-honoured French presidential tradition of having a mistress?
I know what you're going to talk to me about. This sounds very French, doesn't it? Yeah.
Except that this time we know Mitterrand managed to squire a whole family and hide them away, and the French press would never talk about it.
Difficult to do that with Twitter. We also have a different tradition, which is we want to respect privacy, and I think this is down to private life.
I noticed that his criticism was not that it's not true. It was that you've invaded my privacy. So we shall see. Maybe it'll be good for him. Maybe, I remember when Palmerston, at the age of 60-odd, squired a kid in this country, the Tories said we have to hide it up because it will just make him more popular. So
this sounds very
But
sexist.
I wouldn't like to be there when the Rottweiler gets a hold of him.
No comment on that.
Axelle, thanks for joining us. Come back and see you soon.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you.